Joe Bolen, and today we're going to look at error exception handling in VisualBasic.net. Now, ideally, we want to code our code so that we can catch errors or error avoidance. But that's not always available to us, especially with things we can't control. For example, reading a file on a disk or doing some other kind of activity, maybe to a database. There are problems that can be encountered that we can't predict what it will be beforehand to code for it. So we need to know how to handle exceptions that may occur or errors that may occur so that we can process them gracefully and let the user know that the error occurred and it's handled, or that the error was such that it could not be recovered and the program might have to be terminated. But we don't want the program just to halt and present a screen that no one can really understand unless you're a programmer. So we want to code it to make it user-friendly. So let's take a look at what it means to have error handling in Visual Basic. I have a PowerPoint slide up that sort of gives you an idea of what it means to talk about error exception handling in Visual Basic. In the United States, we have a sport that a lot of people love. It's called baseball. And I like the analogy of a baseball for this one because we have a pitcher that throws a ball to a catcher to catch the ball and process out and hopefully win the game. So in this case, we have an error encountered in our program. And the pitcher has countered that error and is going to be throwing an error back to the upper level of the program or a higher level of the stack to signal that an error occurred. And so we see this happening as we process through, and the error is thrown. So we have a system error or some error of unknown type, and it includes the error message about the nature of that kind of error that just occurred. And if everything goes right, we'll have coded in our program for an error to be caught and to handle that error. Or if we don't program for it and we fail to do our job of making our program bulletproof, then a program will halt abruptly, giving us an error message that the user probably will not understand and will cause the program, no doubt, to terminate in an untimely and ungraceful fashion. So let's look at how we might code that. In Visual Basic, we have what's called the TryCatch in try block. And basically, the code begins with a try statement. And here's where we have in our code, right after the try statement, code that might have a problem or throw an exception. For example, if we're processing to a database or writing to a file or some other area where a code might occur. Now remember, we want to have code avoidance of errors if possible. We use the try parse and the parse method a lot of times to look at our code before it gets to an error. But this is a situation where an error might occur that we can't predict ahead of time, and so we code the try beginning of the block. Then we have what's called the catch statement, and usually it's a catch EX as, and it might be a system exception, which is the most general, but probably should be also seen as more detailed types of exceptions that we're looking for. And here's where, when it occurs, we want to execute some kind of code after the catch so that we can inform the user that the error occurred and make it more user-friendly and then continue on. Or maybe we'll need to do something else more drastic in the error catching area. And we can have more than one catch statement. And if we do, we should start with a more specific kind of error exception and then move to finally the general being catching just an exception. And we'll see that as I show you in the code that I have for a program. Then we can have a final area coded in. This code will run regardless of whether we have an error or not. And sometimes we use this to close out and clean up some of the activity that should be done no matter what that occurs in our error situation. So this is an optional code that we can have in here to take care of some action that needs to be done, and it will be processed no matter if an error occurs or not. And then we finish out the block with the end try. Now you can go out to Microsoft and look at the article there of the TryCatch finally statement at Visual Basic, and there's the link to that site. So let's get into our code and see how it's done. Here I have a Visual Basic program that I call QuickNote, which is basically just a text file. It will open up a specific file called QuickNote.txt off a hard drive and pull it into the text box area, and then we can modify it and save the file, and if we need to, we can quickly clear our information. So we have basically just a text box. We have the vertical scroll bar. I've set my font for the text box at Calibri at 12 point, and there's nothing very special other than this is a multi-line text box. The buttons themselves are basic buttons that I've anchored to the bottom right side of the screen, and I've anchored the text box itself to all four sides of the Windows form. Let's take a look at the code. Okay, here's our code. And before I get into the program, I want to bring to your attention that all our documentation is out there at Microsoft, as well as you can go see my particular presentation at Bolen Presents at YouTube, and the code for this one will be out at Pastebin, and the image of the screen with it running is out Imgur. So these are the links, and if you'd like, just pause your video at this point in time to copy those down to go out and check on them later. Also, Pastebin link is on my Bolen Presents site that you can take a link off of there, or to the Imgur site. Now, as I said, the control properties at design time they've coded is the font at Calibri 12 point. The scroll is vertical on the right side. I've anchored the text box on all four sides, and the save file button I've disabled, making it a false value, and all the buttons have been anchored to the bottom and to the right. Okay, now here's one thing that probably is not the best thing to do, but I'm going to do it for a purpose here. The D drive in my case happens to be my CD-ROM drive, and I do not have a disk in there, so I'm going to have an error when I try to access this, and this is why I want to have this for you to see. So I've hard-coded in a constant path file as string, and I'm going out to the D drive trying to access and read and write to the QuickNote text file. As we come into the load, I've made certain that save file button is set off, and as we come in, we'll see different controls. The open file button here is a basic one. We take the my text box, and what I'm going to use is the file system read all method to go out and read all the data from that file into the text property of my text box. The modified property is sort of a dirty flag in a sense. If anything is modified in the text box, the modified flag will be true. If it hasn't been modified, that modified flag is false, and I'm just guaranteeing that it's turned off after I read something into the file before I do any modifications. Then I'm going to go to the end of the text by finding the length of the text and scrolling down to it, and then setting the focus of the cursor into the text box. So this is just basic part of that coding. If I do a save, once again, I'm going to use the write all method of the file system. Here is the path that I'm going to be used, which is that CD-ROM drive, and I'm putting the text property of my text box And there's the second parameter on this, and I'm not appending, I'm actually overwriting the file out there. Then I give back to the user a message saying it was done, turn off once again the modified flag, and then re-scroll to the end of the text. The clear button is simply clearing the text box and setting the focus back to it. And the very act of clearing it does set the modify property of the text box back to false. Finally, if we do any changes to the text box using the My Text Box Modified Change event, I can quickly set the Save File button. In this case, if it becomes modified, which would be true, I'm turning on the Save File button so that we can save the change. Otherwise, the Save File button will be disabled, and there is no purpose to click on the Save File until something is changed in the text box. So this is our basic outline of our program. And if you are new to VisualBasic.net, the My Computer System file system area may be new to you. You can also use the Stream Reader and Stream Writer, but I've chosen to use the file system read all text and write all text for this particular program. So with that in mind, and knowing that we're going to go out to the D drive where I do not have a disk, let's watch this program run. So I'm going to hit the beginning of this one and run it, and here we go. And I'm going to do open file, and we should encounter an error. And right now I've hit an error on this. I see an IO exception was unhandled, and if I go down and click on view detail on the exception box, we'll see that the device is not ready, was the message that came in from that IO exception message. So we see we do have a problem, and this would cause the program to halt if we do not code for this particular problem. Now, if the file was out there or the disk was available, this error would not occur, and we process on normally. So we see right away that there is a need for exception handling to make a program sturdy for its use. So I'm going to stop the program, and let's begin the process of seeing how we can change this. Well, first of all, I'm going to just concentrate on the open file for now. We'll save the write all area later on, and we want to put a TryCatch in try block around this activity that occurs, this being the main part of the problem when we try to do a file IO activity. So I'm going to do a try here on that, and we'll see that I have to have a catch EX as exception, and I will do a message box show, and just to make it quick and easy, we'll do an EX message on that. The property has available to it a number of different properties to the EX part of the exception, and then I'm going to have an end try. Okay, so here we put the TryCatch in try block around our code that will act up, and we're taking the action just to send a message back to the user of what the message was. So let's see this one work. Now, the important thing to remember is after I process this message, I'm going to continue on in my block, and so I should not have any problem with the system halting at this point in time. Let's watch this run now. Okay, we know the file will not be accessible. I'll do an open file, and I get the message, the device is not ready, which was the message we got when we had the harsh exception message that halted the program. I'll just answer OK, and I'll recover back into my program. So this is a way to code very simply for a problem of a file not being made ready for us. However, let's make an improvement on our particular TryCatch. Now here I've done a very simple catching the system exception message, which is the top level generic catch, and all I'm doing is showing the message that was available. Let's make it now a little bit more detailed. And as I said, you want to start with a specific message and then find a more detailed message. So let me show you at this point. If I put my cursor on the particular read all method, I'll go to Microsoft's site and I'm going to click on the read all text. And as I scroll down and understand how to use this particular method of read all and write all, we'll see that there are some exceptions that will be thrown, and here are a whole series of them. The ones that we most likely would find in this particular one is the I/O exception, files being used by another processor, there's an I/O error, possibly a file not being found could present itself. And then another one is that I don't have enough security permissions to access that file or folder area to process the command. So we can see a number of different errors that can occur, with the most generic being, of course, the system exception message. So we want to code with these kind of error messages in the site. And one of the things you'll want to do every time you're coding for areas where we might have errors is go out to Microsoft and see the exceptions that might occur so that you can code for the different ones. We just saw the I/O exception error message occur with this one when the disk was not available for reading from. So let's see how we can code that change in our program. Okay, back to our program. And here's where we begin the process of getting a little bit more detailed. So now I'm going to code more specifically, and I'm going to do a catch EX as an I/O exception. Whoops, I've got that misspelled. No, I don't. Let me take a look at the very top here to make certain I have the import statements on that I need, which I don't have right at the moment, and that's why I'm getting a little problem there. I need to have the particular class of exceptions turned on. And we'll use the air conditioning, and I'm going to do the import SystemIO at the very top. And you'll see now I have the import SystemIO in there, and that'll take care of defining this particular message that we're trying to code for on that. So I've got the SystemIO. In this case, I'm going to be a little bit more detailed on how it processes, because we know that what type of message we have. And so I'm going to sort of steal from down below here, do a copy, pull it up here, and paste it. But now I'm going to be a little bit more detailed on what I'm going to give to the user. In this case, not only am I going to give them the message, but I'm going to give a little caption to what kind of message we have. It's file I/O error. And then I'm going to have the message box OK button. And I'm going to give it a message box icon error message. There we go. So this one will be one. And also, because we're dealing with possible security issues, I want to have another catch. And this one might also need the import statement to make it clear. And this is the security exception. And the reason I'm getting that is it needs the import statement as well. I'm going to click on my little help here on my error correction options, import SystemSecurity, which I just did it now, and we'll see that I have up here both SystemIO and SystemSecurity. And we'll code this message very much the same. So I'm going to take the one above it, copy it, and paste it in here. And this time, though, I'm going to tell the user there's a file permission error. File permissions error. So now the user has a little bit better understanding of what's happening. And then I'm going to leave the exception message in here, but I'm going to change this a little differently. What I want to do is I want to get the type of the message, X, and the message type, I can do a get type, and that has to be converted to string. And then I'm going to put a couple of carriage returns. So I'm going to use a control characters, new line, do it again, and then put the message at the very end on this. So we'll see this message. I'm going to hit this so that you can see it a little bit better on this one. I'm going to go after the ampersand and let you see this a little bit better. There we go. So now we are going to get the type of the message, and we're going to have a couple of carriage returns, then the message itself. Now for a moment I'm going to let you see this code run, and we'll should hit the file IO error message with this one. So I'll hit open, and we get a nice file IO error in our caption area. It says the device is not ready, and we could add some more information if we'd like, but that'd be a good message for someone. And I think they would understand that the device is not ready and they can't get to the CD-ROM drive. So I hit OK, and we recover nicely. Now let me do this particular block of code since I changed it. So let me take away for a minute these lines of code and comment them out, and we'll run it again. And I'll show you what this particular area with the get type brings in. And here now we see the message, SystemIO, IO exception, the device is not ready. So I've given a more detailed description of what error message has it encountered to help the user. Now I'm going to change this a little bit so that the message is a little bit more clarified in the caption area, and we'll finish that out. So what I want to do is add in here file IO error. So under the message of the generic one, I want to add, there's our message, and then I'm going to add the caption to this one. File IO error. Give it our message box OK button and our message box error button. Okay. Let me add this to clean it up, make it look a little nicer to read. There. And so now, uncommenting these up above, we have our nice TryCatch block for our particular one, where we come in, we catch the errors that might happen, we give an error message. In this case it's the message box, but we could have done something else. And if I have a generic error, the most general at the bottom, then I'm just going to give a simple file IO error message, because I know I'm doing a IO activity with the read all on that. Now the same code will you be using for the write as well. So I'm going to grab the bottom part of this and copy it. Come down to our write area where we can have the same problem, and I'm going to code this part as well right here. going to finish out pasting this one in. Put the try right above it. And delete that code line out and put a little extra spacing there. So I changed the bottom one where we can have the same kinds of error messages on this for writing on that, and we'll take care of that problem. So once again, we can see this one in action. Doing an open, I'll get a nice device is not ready message with the file IO error, and close it out. Now let's change it so we can actually do the processing on that. So let's go back up here, and I'm going to change at the very top of our program and comment out and make this a private property. And I'm going to take out the hard coding of the D drive. So now we're using QuickNote, and what I'm going to do on the load is change the path file at this point. I'm going to say path file is going to be equal, and I'm going to use the system's my computer file system, special directories, my documents, and then I'm going to add to it my QuickNotes text, which is my path file. Okay, so now we'll go to the My Documents area where we'll find QuickNotes text and process it. So I've added this one into our load. Let's now run that. And remember, we've also added the import statements up above to deal with those specific exception handling errors. Let's hit start on this one now. And let's watch this one run in a little bit bigger size here. And I'm going to open the file. And there our file came in on that. If I change the file at all, for example, let me go to the bottom and I'll change and add hi there. And by changing it, the modified flag kicked on, the save file button toggled on. I'll hit save file. And I got back the message. The file is successfully saved. Say OK. And then I'll clear this out. And let's go back in and load in the file. And there it is. Hi there is there. And now I'll change it by deleting it out. Our save file button will come on, and I can save the file back out and get it back to its original state. File successfully saved. So we see by coding for some of those specific things that can happen in our code, and taking an image of the file system special directories for putting in things, or we could have something else in here as well. But this makes it a quick and easy way to find where to put documents that we normally work with. In this case, it being a text document, the My Documents section would be a good spot for this to go. You may not want to have this hard coded, and we can put in a open file dialog component into our program, so we could dynamically go out and find a file that we want to bring in and modify. And then we want to make certain that we do have our TryCatch in try block of code around our I/O activity. In this case, it's the read all area, and also in the writing back out to it. For example, if I was to use a external drive, maybe a USB flash drive that I was writing to, and I pulled out the flash drive for some reason and forgot to put it back in, and then went to go back out and write out, I'd have an error, and I want to catch that error at that point in time as well. So we've got to remember that anytime we're doing something where there's a potential for an error to occur, we want to have the TryCatch block coded in. This particular group did not need the finally keyword in there to do any kind of activity. So that is an optional part of the TryCatch block, is the finally statement, which will execute no matter what, whether I have an error or do not have an error. But you want to code this in. Now, just to remind you, the TryCatch in-try block of code is computer intensive, and we don't want to use it on everything we do. We want to use it where we know that there's a potential for an error, but we can't predict what the error will be ahead of time. But if I'm dealing with user input of data, there's where I want to use things like the try-parse and the parse method to make certain the data is clean before I process it. That's different. That's error avoidance. And we want to use error avoidance as well as error exception handling. So hopefully this will give you a little idea of how to code and take advantage of learning about exception handling. Go out to Microsoft's site and take a look at the information about the TryCatch block. Learn how to use it where it's needed, especially with file activity and database activity, and also try to use your normal error avoidance techniques to keep an error from occurring in general without using the TryCatch block. But take advantage of both those tool sets to make your code better. So get your hands dirty in the code, catch those exceptions, and until next time, take care.